Hi, happy World Book Day. This is the room where I do my writing, where I make my books. But am I going to stay in here today? No, I'm not, because it's World Book Day and you and I are going to go together on a World Book Day adventure. And when I say you, I mean all of you, especially if you are Farnborough Road Junior School, Tamer, hello Tamer, Eve from County Down, who's just written her first book, Foley Park Primary. There's a shout out here from Kent to Ben, because they're reading Broccoli to Boy together on FaceTime, Wallace High School in Lisbon, and Sophie from Cleveland. Sophie, who wrote a poem, great poem. We are going somewhere together. I'm going to get my flying jacket on. And are you ready to come with me on a World Book Day adventure? The Strand Shopping Centre, where Liam's adventures begin. So, welcome to Kingsley & Co. This is one of my favourite bookshops in the world. As you can see, it's a lovely bookshop. It's got a nice cosy fireplace. It's got people reading books. So I'm just going to say a quick hello to Freddie Williams from the Wirral, home of the Green Knight. Kiani, who read Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in the first lockdown. Big shout out to Year 4 at Avanti House Primary. Nightingale class and Goldfinch class at Powell. Lindo Year 5. My fellow writer, Sarah Jane Roberts, who writes such great short stories. P6 in the mighty Our Lady of the Annunciation School in Glasgow, and Sycamore class at Tattersall Holy Trinity Primary. You are all welcome here today to the fabulous Kingsley & Co., which is lined with books, gorgeously comfortable. But as you know, books can take you to a new world. Because I know the secrets of Kingsley & Co., I'm going to take you with me today. Look at this. Wow. This is it. This is the secret chamber of adventures, the HQ of many adventures here at Kingsley & Co. in Bootle Strand. Isn't it amazing? I'm just going to lock the door. Fantastic. I love this place. So just going to make sure that we're COVID secure. Checking through my periscope. Yeah, no COVID. I'm going to go get in the story chair and start to talk the story. It's World Book Day, and I'm going to talk about books. Not the stories that are in books, not the pictures that are in books, or the recipes that are in books, or the letters that are in books, but the books, the physical object of the book. Because it's kind of an amazing invention when you think about it. You can hold it in your hand, you can turn the pages over. It doesn't need electricity. It doesn't need to be connected to the internet. You can give it as a present. It's an amazing thing. So what is the world's oldest book? Do you know? The oldest thing that looks like a book, I mean, it's got pages that you can turn over and they're joined together at one side, is from about 660 BC. It was made by the Etruscan people and they lost it. I know that they lost it because they completely lost it. And it wasn't found until about 70 years ago. So that's 2,500 years after they made it. And 2,500 years after they made this book, we can still read it and we can still hold it in our hands. Do you know why? Because the pages were made of gold, which is, beautiful, very durable. That's why it's lasted, hasn't got rusty, hasn't got mouldy, but expensive. I mean, you're not going to get a golden book in your Christmas stocking. You're not going to put a golden book in your back pocket to read when you're waiting for the bus. So it took a long time for books to become the way that we are today. They were always beautiful. So the pages thing, that didn't catch on at first. There were lots of parchments and scrolls, and these were kept in great libraries. It was very hard to write on things like parchment. Papyrus takes a long time to make. So the great libraries of the world, the first two really great libraries of the world, both in Africa, one in Alexandria in Egypt, the other one an amazing library in Timbuktu in Mali. And these books were beautiful objects, really beautiful objects. I'm going to show you some of my favourites. This is fantastic. I love this. Monks would spend, and holy people would spend a long time copying stories onto parchment and decorating them beautifully. Look how beautiful this is. This is a Bible from Ethiopia in the Middle Ages. Can you see that? This is King Solomon. And this is St. John the Evangelist with his eagle. This is an Ethiopian Bible. Really beautiful, amazingly beautiful. The handwriting, they took ages doing the writing. They had to invent, they had to work out how to make these amazing colours. So they were chemists as much as they were writers and copiers. This is, I'm going to show you these 2 pages. This is, I think, perhaps the most beautiful book that's ever been created. This is from Ireland. Well, it's from Lindisfarne in the northeast. This is the Book of Kells, which is also a Bible book. Can you see all the gold and the blue? So they painted all these things. They spent ages and ages doing them. So, of course, they were very precious. And they cost a lot of money to make. You know, they would spend years and years of labour, chemistry, importing all the special chemicals to make the colours, the scholarship in them, the artistry in them. So they would be chained up. These books would be chained up in libraries. They were called chained libraries. And your copy became a very, very precious thing. So sometimes, like the book, not the stories in it, just the book would become a special object, and it would be carried into battle in a special case like this, because they thought the book had power in it. So I'm going to tell you the story of one of the most famous of these books. There was a great man called Columba, who was in Ireland, and he was the great-grandson of a famous Irish king, Niall of the Nine Hostages. And Columba became a scholar and a monk. And he went to stay with his old teacher, who was called Finian. And he found out that Finian had an extraordinarily beautiful one of these books, a Psalter. That's to say, it has the Psalms in it. It was so beautiful. I mean, just this level of beauty, incredibly beautiful thing. And Columba looked at that and thought, I want one of those. So, every night when Finian went to bed, Columba would get out of bed and he would start to copy Finian's Book of Psalms very carefully with his beautiful handwriting and his great artistry, but presumably with St. Finian's ink and paper that he must have nicked anyway. So he worked night after night, and people say that he could do this because when he wrote, his fingers glowed. He had like glow fingers. So he copied out the whole of the Psalter. It's called a Psalter. It's a book of Psalms. And then one day, St. Finian got up early. I think they always got up early, the monks, but he got up even earlier than usual. And he caught St. Columba copying his book out, and he was raging. He was raging. And because this was like an illegal download. You know when you download a film without paying for it? This was like this. So he dragged him off to the court of King Dermot and said, this man has copied my book, like copying my homework, downloaded my movie. What are you going to do about it? And the King Dermot looked at the book and looked at the copy. They were completely identical, and both worth a fortune, both unbelievably beautiful. And he made this ruling. He said, to every cow its calf, to every book its copy. And he said that it was wrong for St. Columba to do that. And he had to give the copy back that he'd worked on with his glow fingers, had to give it back to St. Finian. Right, well, Columba was raging. He was more raging than Finian had been raging. And he went off to the court of his own ancestors, the court of Niall of the Nine Hostages. And he said, this guy and this, I'm so mad. And he raised an army. This is how powerful books were. He raised an army, and they had a battle at Drumcliff, where I go on my holidays every year, in Sligo. They had a battle there, and 3,000 of the men on St. Finian's side were killed, and none of the men on St. Columba's side were killed. And St. Columba said, well, that proves that right was on my side and God was on my side, that I won this battle. And all the other monks in Ireland said, no, we don't think God goes in for that. We don't think God did that. We don't think God killed those men. We think you did. And so pack your bag and leave. And he left. He had to leave Ireland in a little tiny boat. And he ended up on the island of Iona, where he started, well, two things. One, he saw the Loch Ness Monster for the first time. He's the first person who saw the Loch Ness Monster. But much more importantly, he started the scriptorium. And he taught people to make beautiful books. This was his penance for having done such a terrible thing and being responsible for the death of 3,000 men. He started to create these very, very beautiful books. And the really beautiful one that I showed you, the Book of Kells, that was made in Lindisfarne on the other side of the country, but from monks who had been trained at Columba Scriptorium. So he tried to make the world a better place. After having done a terrible thing, he tried to make the world a better place by filling it full of beautiful, beautiful things. And that is the story of books. And that's fabulously valuable books that people will go and die in great numbers for. But what really is important about books now is that they're really cheap, and you can read them and you can give them away. And I'm going to show you something very precious to me. This is a book. Well, I'll tell you the story of this book, which is a very different story. My dad grew up in a little flat near the docks in Liverpool, not very far from here. And during the war, his brothers were much older than he was. His big brothers went off to fight at sea. They were in the Battle of the Atlantic, which was really terrible, very, very, very dangerous, on the little ships out in the wild, wild sea. And my dad was on his own in the flat with his mum, my gran. And one day, his big brother Jim came back from the war in his beautiful white uniform. This little flat, the docks, the big ships, tiny little flat, little boy, 10 years old. His big brother comes in his shining white uniform, and he's got a big white kit bag over his shoulder. And out of his kit bag, he takes this book. This book is called William the Gangster. It was published in 1941. And if you look in the front, you can see it says to Francis, that's my dad's name, from Jim. There you go. And he gave it to him. It's the first book that my dad ever owned. He started reading it right away. My dad left school at 14. They all had to leave school at 14. But he learnt to love books. And he started going to night school, and he did ordinary jobs, but he eventually became a teacher, and he was a really, really great teacher. And all the pupils that he had did really well in life, and some of them became teachers, and their students became teachers, and all the good that my dad did keeps going on and on and on. And I think kind of all comes from this book. This is the book that made him love books. It made him laugh a lot. These are the stories of Just William. They're really, really funny. And now my dad's quite ill, and I read to him from this book. And when I read this book to him, he's 10 years old again, and I'm 10 years old again. So they were right about books having magic properties. They were right to carry books into battle, because a book does have magic properties. It can make a 90-year-old man feel like he's 10 years old, and an old man like me feel like he's 10 years old as well. So that's the story of books, according to me, Frank. And it's now normally at this point in my YouTube things, I've been setting people a writing challenge and doing it with them, but it's World Book Day, and I think it's important to listen to a story. So I know that some of you, this started because a lot of you were reading Cosmic, so I thought I would read you the last chapter of Cosmic here in Bootle Strand, because the last chapter of Cosmic happens in Bootle Strand. So we're literally there, so let me read you the last chapter. This is a kind of goodbye. Where am I now? Well, I'm in the Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle. I actually am. I literally am. Sitting by the water feature, not quite, while Mum and Dad are switched on electricals, upgrading his sat-nav. I've borrowed my dad's phone so I can play Snake while I'm waiting for them. And while I'm noodling around looking for the game, I noticed that his audio diary is nearly full. And that's when I realised that our phones are twins. And when I made my diary in space, it was saved to his card down here in Bootle. So I can listen to it all again. And I can tell you now how it ends. The best thing about being on Earth is definitely the gravity. The way you don't just float off the floor or feel like there's a cannonball stuck to your head. People are hurrying around each other with their bags and their pushchairs and their shopping trolleys. They come up to each other, then they go away, and then they come back again. And it's like a great big dance, and everyone knows their moves. And then suddenly, everyone moved towards the windows and switched on electricals, as though some big comet with a massive inherent gravity has gone by, and they're all drawn to it. I can only see their backs. People are standing on tiptoe. Dads are putting their kids on their shoulders, and I know what they're doing. They're watching the launch of a rocket called the Infinite Possibility, which is going to send the first ever child astronaut, Shenzhen, into space. She's going to circumnavigate the moon. So she's not just going to be the first child in space, she'll be the first person to leave Earth's orbit since 1972. One person has just left the crowd and is heading over towards me. It's Dad. He's walking towards me like there's some special gravity pulling him to me. And maybe there is. Maybe everyone's got their own special gravity. And it lets you go far away, really far away. But it always brings you home in the end. Because here's the thing. Gravity is variable. Sometimes you float like a feather, sometimes you're too heavy to move. Sometimes a boy can weigh more than the whole universe. The universe goes on forever, but that doesn't make you small. Everyone is massive. Everyone's King Kong. Dad says, aren't you coming to watch it? Maybe later. I'm okay just now. Everyone in the world remembers when they heard about what Shenzhen saw on the moon. I was standing in our kitchen. I was about to go to school. I'd just taken my end-of-term report out from under the little square grey stone that we used as a paperweight. Mum was reaching up to give me a kiss. Do you know, she said, I'm sure you've shrunk. And she pushed me back against the See How I Grow chart and measured me. And it was true. I was half an inch shorter than the day I started at Waterway High. Why does that not surprise me, said Dad. That would be typical Liam, to start shrinking as he gets older. To spend his childhood 6 foot tall with a beard, and his adulthood 5 foot nothing with a baby face. The traffic update had just begun on the radio. Dad turned it up so he could hear properly, when it suddenly stopped and the newsreader came on with this amazing report, and we went over live to the rocket. Because Shenzhen had found something on the moon. And really, said the announcer, this find of hers changes everything. We've got pictures. Yes, there it is. There's no doubt about it. It's a man-made object. We know that no Apollo mission went to that part of the moon. It seems unlikely that a secret Russian or Chinese mission would leave a thing like this. This changes everything. This was a load of rocks, square grey stones just like the one on top of our kitchen cabinet, and all the stones were arranged to spell out some words. Couldn't be coincidence, because it was just so clear. Florida rang up to make sure I was watching. Remember the surprise, she said. I'd completely forgotten about the surprise, but I saw it now. Spelled out across the lunar surface were 2 words. Hello, Dad. I was grinning all over my face. I said, hello, into the phone. I was assuming that she'd written for me. And now I come to think about it, maybe she was saying hello to that other Dad, the one who'd left. My dad looked across at me. He looked puzzled, like he knew it had something to do with me. I said, hello, Dad. And now he looked really confused. When he hears this story, maybe he'll think I got them to write it there for him. And maybe he'll be right. Maybe it was for both of us, and for all the other dads, for all the dads on Earth, and all the dads that are not on Earth, and their dads, outwards and backwards in time, all the way to the daddy of the universe. And looking out into space, it sends its greeting from Earth. Hello, Dad. That's the end of Cosmic. I would like to read you one more thing. It's just a paragraph, but it just seems so strange and right, because in a way we're probably saying goodbye to each other for a good reason, that the pandemic has ended. I wrote this book ages ago, years before the pandemic, about a pandemic. I don't know how I did it. But this is the very ending of that book. The book is about some children who have caught a virus that makes them bright green, and the whole of the country has a virus. It's very dangerous, and it turns out that the children who turn green are the cure. And for complicated reasons that you'll only find out if you read the book, they're right up on top of the Shard in London, and at the bit I'm reading, they're being lowered down on a crane. That's the Strand closing. Okay, everything's coming to an end. They're looking down at the city, and it just looks like a map or a model. Oh, it's an emergency. Do you want to stop filming it? And now it's time for your questions and my answers. Patrick Roos.
So these are some questions from 3-tier Edward Bryant. What does writing in first person bring to your stories?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I write most of my books as though somebody is talking to you. I like storytelling, and I like somebody telling me a story. So when a book is in the first person, it's as though the person telling the story is in the room telling you the story. And what's good about it, if you're a writer, is that it makes life a little bit difficult, because the person telling the story doesn't know everything that's happening in the story. So you have to make that work for you. So in Cosmic, Liam doesn't really understand everything that's going on. So you can only find out things the way he finds them out, like a detective story.
Yeah. And what books are you reading right now?
Right now, well, I'm reading books to get myself ready for my next book, which is all about magic. Not magic, but conjuring and conjuring tricks. And I'm also reading this, which is my dad's copy of Just William, which I've been talking about. And I read it to me, and it makes me feel like I'm 10 again. And I read it to my dad, and it makes him feel like he's 10 again, because it's his copy from when he was 10.
And is there any particular place that you like to read books?
I love reading books here in Kingsley & Co. with its secret passages and strange corners and fireplaces and things. It's a lovely, cosy place to read.
Do you think you would set another story in space?
In space. Ooh. Yeah, probably. I like to think about space. I still do want to be an astronaut. So, yeah, I think my heart is in the stars, always.
And these some questions from Francis. How did you write a series without rubbing out with ideas?
Without running out of ideas?
Yes.
I wrote the Chitty Bang Bang books. Well, I should have brought that with me. The Chitty Bang Bang books, there's 3 of them. Like, if you have a great idea in the middle, like a flying car, then any kind of adventures can happen, like with the TARDIS in Doctor Who. But I think that's what I've been saying all the way through these YouTube things, that where do ideas come from? They come from other ideas. Ideas like to find each other. Ideas like to dance. If you have one idea and you start working on it, other ideas will come. So you never need to worry about running out of ideas.
How do you have the patience writing a book?
Well, I'm just a very patient and lovely person, as you know.
And these some questions from Andy. Book formatting, is it okay to do something different?
Yes! Oh, I should have brought a book with me. Yes, you can do anything you like with a book format. If you think of what the Wimpy Kid books look like, as opposed to what my books look like, as opposed to what Chris Riddell's amazing books look like, inside a book, there's lots and lots of ways to make a book look. If you think of the books that we've just been talking about, some are gold, and some are lapis lazuli, and some are huge, and some are tiny.
And this is one from Ted. Is it okay to copy ideas but change them up a bit?
Yes, absolutely. Ted, I'm so thrilled that you asked that question. Yes, absolutely. Take the best place to get ideas is other people's ideas. Just take whatever idea you like, and when you put a bit of you in it, because you are unique, and you are special, and you are fabulous, and you are unique in the whole universe, you will become the special ingredient that turns that tired old story into some amazing newness of Ted.
And this is a question from Outwards Edge, Year 6. We have recently read Millions and absolutely loved it, but we are not fans of Dorothy. Even after we had finished reading, we couldn't shake the feeling that she was very shady. Are we right about her?
You are completely right. I think there's something very, very dodgy about Dorothy. I've always thought there was something dodgy about Dorothy. Give her a wide berth if you meet her.
And one from Sarah Jane is, any tips on not getting bored writing a long story?
Not getting bored writing a long story. Find somewhere cosy and comfortable to write it. Write your story set somewhere you'd like to be. Get yourself a nice pad, a nice pen. Turn off the internet, turn off the telly. Lose your phone. Make yourself cosy and make writing the story your treat. Make it your happy place.
And one from P6 in Our Lady of the...
Annunciation.
Yes.
Our Lady of the Annunciation in Glasgow, is that?
Yeah.
That great school.
We'd like to know, what's your favourite Waterway in the world?
What is the world's best Waterloo? Waterloo and Patrick's Waterloo. Yeah. This is a good Waterloo. This is a very good Waterloo. It's by the sea. Though I hear great things about Waterloo, Sierra Leone. Everyone says that's a nice Waterloo. Yeah. But this is definitely a top Waterloo, as Waterloos go. Is that all the questions?
That's all the questions we have.
Top questioning. Thank you for your questions. There's one more thing I'd like to read to you. It's just a paragraph. It's from the end of this book, The Standing Broccoli Boy, which is a book about a pandemic. I wrote it years ago. How did I know? Did I make the pandemic? And it's about a virus that covers the country, and there's lockdowns and the cities are evacuated. There are some children in it who have caught the virus in a different way from everybody else, and these children turn out to be the cure. It's got a happy ending. I wanted to read you the ending because it feels like we're coming to the end of the pandemic, and this is how I imagined that would look. For complicated reasons that I won't go into here, you have to read the book. They're on top of the Shard in London. They've escaped from somewhere and they're on top of the Shard, and now they're being lowered down in a crane, and they're looking down at London from 1,000 feet high, and it looks like a map, a model. Then they go to some cloud, and as they come down, London gets nearer and nearer. And then there came a moment when suddenly we could see things moving. Cars, a train, boats on the river, as though the city had been stopped by some kind of freeze ray, and now they had come back to life and was running to catch up with itself. And my 200% brain saw how much of that running was done by heroes, by firefighters putting out fires, ambulance drivers chasing through traffic, doctors and nurses saving lives, bin men emptying smelly bins, mums and dads looking after kids, young people looking after old people helping young people. Heroes were everywhere. When you thought about it, a city was nothing but heroes. Heroism is everywhere. Heroism is the petrol that makes a city go. A few minutes later, we heard noises, ships' horns, traffic, and last of all, cheers. That's how I hope your pandemic ends. You've all been heroes. You're all surrounded by heroes. Carry on being heroic. Thank you. Goodbye.